Welcome to the Savvy Giving Gal podcast. I'm your host, Melissa Turilli-Smith, and I couldn't be more excited about hosting my first virtual summit. This summit, entitled Putting the Pieces Back Together After Cancer Treatment, is a community-centered virtual summit for women navigating life, healing, and identity after cancer. I have watched countless friends and my own mother navigate their cancer journey. But once the treatment is complete, the journey doesn't end. Healing after cancer isn't just physical, it's emotional, spiritual, and social. This summit was created to bring together a community of women, caregivers, experts, and survivors to share real conversations, actionable tools, and generous support. Here at the Savvy Giving Gal podcast, I believe in the power of community and giving back and how it transforms lives and improves our health. This summit is a reflection of my mission. My co-host for today's summit is a close friend, cancer survivor, and the founder of Pausitive Outlook, Teyonna Bowman. She is the heart behind the resource-based platform that helps women navigate cancer, medically induced menopause, and beyond.
Hi, I'm Teyonna Bowman. I am a breast cancer survivor and the founder of Pausitive Outlook. Today, I'm so excited to be here with Melissa for her first virtual summit called Putting the Pieces Back Together After Cancer Treatment. This is of particular importance and really value to me because during treatment, I had a very clear path for which doctors to talk to, which milestones I was going to hit, and what to expect during treatment. But after ringing the bell and running the victory lap, I felt like I was charting my own path. There were times when I literally felt like I was putting the pieces back together myself. And so today we're going to share stories and information from experts around the menopause and breast cancer space to help you navigate this new time of life. And we hope that you enjoy everything that we have to share.
Teyonna and I have brought together experts on several topics that affect cancer survivors. Today, she's going to share her expertise on medically induced menopause and sexual health. Let's start with what inspired you to start Pausitive Outlook.
Oh, okay. It's a great start. So shortly after I turned 35, I was diagnosed with breast cancer. And right before my 40th birthday, I had a recurrence. And in both situations, the breast cancer that I had was hormone sensitive and moderately aggressive. So my oncologist suggested that I start ovarian suppression to reduce the risk of a recurrence. And that would send me into medically induced menopause. And so with everything that I had already endured, I thought that I was completely ready for it. But I wasn't.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I wasn't at all. I was only familiar with the surface level symptoms that women would have during menopause. And then even with a super capable and great oncology team,
Mm-hmm.
I felt like the support that I got from medically induced menopause and what it all meant was kind of piecemeal. I was in a state where I just felt like the pieces of a puzzle were dumped in front of me and I had to figure out what went with what went with cancer survivorship, what went with being in menopause, and then what went with just coping with a new identity. And so it was really hard. And I did a lot of Googling and reading books because I just couldn't really reconcile the data. And the more that I learned, the more that I was processing how my body was changing, how my mind was shifting. And I knew that I needed an outlet for that. And so my outlet was to blog, which is very old school now.
I love it.
But I got in front of my computer
Yeah.
and I just started sharing my feelings, and that helped me process the change. And in putting my feelings out there, sharing my story, I thought that it was really important that other women should have a place to share their stories and also a place to understand why it's so important to find breast cancer early. And so Pausitive Outlook was first my healing spot, but it has since evolved into a platform where women can learn about early detection, get menopause resources, and then even come together for events and communities. So it was out of my own need for healing that Positive Outlook started.
Yeah, I think that's such a beautiful thing that you took your journey and then use that to help other women. Can you kind of share the journey into medically induced menopause and what that looked like specifically to you?
Yeah. So medically induced menopause can happen for a couple of reasons. So there are kind of three ways. So one way to be considered in, I guess, medically induced menopause is to have your ovaries removed. That's technically called surgical menopause. Another way is through medications like Zoladex or Lupron that are injected into your body and they stop your ovarian function. Your ovaries will wake up once you stop taking that medication, but they're meant to stop your body from producing hormones. And then the third way of going into medically induced menopause could be through chemo or other hormone treatments. And so for me, it's the monthly injections of Zoladex. And what that meant was that I went from producing all of the hormones that a 40-year-old produces, which is kind of up and down, to nothing at all. And so it meant a lot of very extreme and severe side effects that I experienced immediately and still experience to this day.
What has been the most challenging symptom you've experienced during medically induced menopause?
I'd say the most challenging symptom has been the changes emotionally and mentally. The physical changes definitely got my attention. I was a champion sleeper, and so having hot flashes and night sweats was so hard to deal with. I was dealing with dizziness to the point I was afraid to drive, and my skin was dry. My hair started breaking off again, and it was all the hair that I had grown back after chemo. So it was kind of like insult to injury. And I had heart palpitations, and those things were scary. And I was able to pinpoint in books kind of why they were changing. So while it impacted my day-to-day life, I at least knew what they were tied to. But the mental and emotional changes were really hard. And it makes me think of when I was working. I always prided myself in being able to connect the dots and respond quickly during meetings and just be present. But I found myself struggling for words and dealing with brain fog. I would forget very simple tasks on my to-do list. And it made me question my worth at work. And it started a cycle of really negative self-talk. And that was hard to deal with. And so I was working with my therapist at the time, and she helped me realize that it was important to start labeling things. And if I wanted to fight for my mental health, quality of life, I had to put some practices in place. And so we went back to a time where my self-talk was at its highest. And that was when I was younger. I was a former athlete, a college athlete, and I competed on a high level. So I had to push my body and lift really heavy. And I had to be my own cheerleader and tell myself, like, you got this. Yeah. And it worked wonders for my confidence. And so we went back to that, and I started working out more. And the thought of working out more to deal with mental and emotional changes seemed counterintuitive, but it made a very big difference. And making those changes helped me understand the importance of mantras and just building myself up. And so this journey has been a long one with the mental and emotional changes, but tips like that made a big change for me.
Yeah, those are great tips. And along with them, do you have any other tips you've learned through this experience that you would want to share with another woman who was going through this now?
Yeah. Working out works wonders. Lifting heavy is important. A major caveat is don't just go into the gym and start throwing
Yes.
up weights
Yes.
without guidance because you could get hurt.
Yeah.
But going in with, the guidance of a trainer is always helpful. I think being open to trying new things and new treatments is really important. And a personal story that I'll share that I'm actually dealing with right now is that when I was first experiencing some of my symptoms and side effects, my team recommended that I start taking Effexor, which is an antidepressant. And I'm not against antidepressants at all or medication. I am a survivor because of medication, but I've had some negative side effects due to other things I was taking, and I was afraid. And I said no. I didn't want to take it. I wanted to just see if I could manage my hot flashes and some anxiety issues I was having on my own. And it's been a couple of years and I haven't found the right solution, but I've gotten to the point where just recently I've decided to give it a try. And that's been a journey. But I had to tell myself this isn't me losing or anything like that. It's just recognizing that my mind and my body are a little bit different and might need a different type of support. And so my advice would be to go with the flow and be willing to try something new if what was, working in the past is not working anymore. And then the final piece of advice that I would have is that our oncologists and gynecologists, especially for breast cancer survivors, are typically our first line of defense when there are questions about changes. And I think that should be the case. But there's a ton of value in building your medical team and bringing in additional specialties to support the journey after cancer. Looking at what naturopaths can offer, working with acupuncturists is really important, and even understanding that our heart health changes. So getting a referral to see a cardiologist is probably a smart move. So managing our health after cancer is a hands-on thing. We are putting these pieces together, but I think going about it in a holistic and well-rounded way will help healing overall.
Yeah, I really love that tip. I think that's really important. And I think you give women permission now to go out and try things that they might have been afraid of before. So during this journey, what do you think people were misunderstanding? What do you think that some people didn't understand when you were going through it that you wish that they did?
I think the fact that it's ongoing is something that's hard to wrap your mind around because menopause doesn't hit anyone in the face. They don't necessarily know that, you're having a hot flash. I just had one a couple of seconds ago and I didn't tell you hot flash, but, a lot of these things are invisible. And I think for younger breast cancer survivors, that word survivor is so powerful. And it indicates that, you've gone through that. I've gone through something that could have taken me out and is constantly on my mind. But I don't think that the word survivor gives enough weight to the fact that the process is ongoing. For women who have had breast cancer, especially under 50, under 40 even, we're still navigating relationship dynamics, trying to make career, benchmarks and goals and dealing with doctor's appointments in between. And I think the emotional toll and weight that takes on a breast cancer survivor when, dealing with hot flashes and brain fog at work just isn't visible. And it can feel really challenging for me, at least, to complain about that. I mean, I'm talking about it now, but in the day-to-day flow, it's hard to complain about quality of life when you've survived such a scary diagnosis. And so I would just say that for young cancer survivors and women going through medically induced menopause, just continue to check on your friend or family member on how they're feeling and their journey, and just try and be open for conversations in a safe space, because it's ongoing. Yeah.
I love that kindness that you're spreading and teaching other people to spread during this time, because I think sometimes it's a hard topic to bring up to someone who was a survivor. Like, you don't want to mention it, but I think that if we can get past that and just really check in with our friends and family, and we've all know someone who's been affected sadly by cancer.
Yeah.
So have you found tools? I mean, you've mentioned therapy, but journaling, meditation, community groups that have kind of eased this anxiety and sadness and maybe emotional toll that cancer has taken and menopause has taken on your life?
Yeah. Strangely and thankfully, the world has opened up.
Yeah. Yes.
Because of the answers and solutions that I've been seeking to manage survivorship and medically induced menopause. So, yes, I am a huge reader, an audiobook consumer. And so learning about just ways to process, what's happening and personal growth is really important. I journal a lot. My morning routines have changed significantly since being on this side of survivorship. I wake up every morning and I have a gratitude practice. So I'm always writing down at least 3 things that I'm grateful for the morning. I take early morning walks and I have meditation time, and that helps ground me for the day. And it helps me kind of charge up my power source. And that is definitely a good place to start from, combating anxiety. It's not just getting up and going. So I would say that morning routines are very important for me. And, I would recommend just making tweaks wherever possible. And then my nighttime routine, I have not cracked the nut on sleep. I'm still trying to figure that out. But one thing that has also been a major game change for me and supports my positive self-talk is actually journaling at night before going to bed. And so I write down what I love about myself, what I'm proud of for the day, what I forgive myself for the day, and then what held me back or not. And I think reflecting at night is a good way to offer kind of a safe landing spot if it's been a hard day. And it's also a place of recharging again before going to bed. So journaling has been critical. My morning routines has been critical. Tapping into community has also been critical. I've become a part of a local young survivors group here. It's called BAYS, the Bay Area Young Survivors. I'm a part of the Breasties. They're based on the East Coast, but they bring breast cancer and gynecological cancer survivors together. And then For the Breast of Us is for women of color who have been impacted by breast cancer. And what I've noticed is that every time that I'm engaging with those groups and meeting new women, I'm getting so much more healing than I even realized that I needed. And I think engaging in those communities when you're ready is important, because I wasn't ready to initially. But when you're ready to, it's such a sacred space. And I would highly recommend getting tapped into a survivor network that really kind of reflects where you are in the journey.
And Teyonna and I are going to link them, those kind of resources in the notes for this virtual summit, which we're really excited to share.
Yeah.
So another topic you speak often about is sexual health during this time of healing. So I want to start with, can you just talk about what women might experience after treatment that would impact their sexual experience?
Yeah. Okay. So I'm going to sound a little gloom and doom. And that was something that was really scary to me when I first started medically induced menopause. But not everyone experiences these changes, but when our hormone production drops to essentially nothing,
Right.
women can experience extreme changes in their vaginal health. Like our vaginal walls can start to thin, that skin starts to thin. Our risk of vaginal dryness increases, risk of UTIs and bladder infections can increase. Medical menopause can bring on loss of libido. It can bring on just changes overall in just the day-to-day feeling. And so I think it is extremely important to be intentional about caring for your sexual health and well-being after medically induced menopause, because the cards are stacked against you.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's not necessarily easy to get back into a routine if you had one prior to a diagnosis of intimacy, because it can take quite a bit, and so some of the resources and changes that have impacted me in a positive way from a sexual health standpoint is vaginal estrogen and also doing mindful work. So sexual health can change post-cancer, and it's because of the loss of hormones. Yeah.
I love that you're talking about this topic too, because I think even when you're not a cancer survivor or in medically induced menopause, it's a hard topic to talk about, but an important one and important in all of our lives. So can you share some more maybe products or tools that have helped you in that side of your journey?
Yeah, sure. I really had to be mindful of what I was using, because just to back up a little bit, I think being a cancer patient really messed with my mind-body connection. Going into appointments and constantly stripping down for doctors was something that I had to do functionally. And my body transitioned from a place of feeling sacred to me and like something to be felt and soft to something that had to be fixed immediately by any means necessary. And that, like I said, it really eroded my mind-body connection, and it changed how I felt about intimacy. And so I struggled for a while in figuring out what I could even do. Lubricants, great, all of those things. But it wasn't until I started hearing more gynecologists talk about the safety of local vaginal estrogen for breast cancer survivors that I realized, okay, I might have an option that I can talk to my doctor about. And so vaginal estrogen has been very important for protecting my tissue and helping with some of the changes and being protective against UTIs and bladder infections as well. But a resource that I can't say enough about, I feel like I'm always telling everyone about this woman, is my sexual health and wellness coach, Gabriela Espinoza. She was really influential in helping me understand that tapping into pleasure, not just from a bedroom standpoint, but in life overall, is important for reestablishing that mind-body connection, because it's just going internal and remembering what things bring you joy. Like a silly example, which is true, is like I get so happy when I eat a bag of chips and I pull out like a fully formed chip.
Oh my God, I never thought of that before, but that is really satisfying, actually.
So satisfying. And so, I mean, like things like that.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, that makes me feel happy. Or, oh my gosh, the sun feels really good right now. And so it's just reestablishing that mind-body connection. So having a, vaginal estrogen is super important. Lubricants and moisturizers are important. But also tapping into coaches, like sexual health and wellness coaches, is really important in supporting just the reconnection with your more intimate side.
I love that
Yeah.
suggestion. Is hormone replacement therapy safe to use?
It is, but that is definitely
That's
a
a loaded
conversation.
question.
It
I
is,
know. That's
and
a
I am
loaded
not a
question.
doctor.
Yes.
And it's 100% a question that every cancer survivor has to talk to their doctor about. And it depends. You know, a woman's risk of recurrence is going to impact that, and you know what her medical team is comfortable with is going to impact that. But from all that I've learned and from what I'm doing myself, breast cancer survivors are typically allowed to use localized hormones, vaginal estrogen, not systemic estrogen. And I think that's important to know and to have a conversation about. And just a quick example is that it can take a little bit of tweaking. When I first started taking vaginal estrogen, and I was getting my monthly estradiol tests when I was getting my Zoladex injections, there were 2 months in a row where my estradiol levels spiked much higher than they were prior to me taking the localized estrogen. And that made my team, you know, kind of scratch their head because it's like, oh, this is local treatment. It's not systemic. But what we did was we dialed back my dosage of the localized estrogen and continued my blood work to make sure that my estradiol levels were at a, a low level where they should be, to help prevent recurrence. But it took some troubleshooting. It took back and forth conversations between my oncology team and my gynecologist. And so, all that to say, you have to talk to your doctor about it and be very hands-on about checking on, you know, your tests and estradiol levels if you're a breast cancer survivor, and manage it accordingly.
Well, thank you for sharing your experience with it. And that's a great suggestion because I think anything that we mention here in the summit should be checked with your doctor, you know, before you go off and do it. But I think knowing your story and being able to put a face to some of these treatments and tools is a great thing. And we'll link them all, obviously. So is there any resources as our time comes to an end, books, podcasts, doctors, that have really been a game changer for you?
Yes.
Okay.
I'm going to sound like a laundry list here.
I love it.
because
Do it.
there are so many women and doctors who are putting out very, very helpful information. One of the books that I love, and it was really the first book that was eye-opening for me, is The Menopause Manifesto by Dr. Jen Gunther. She does a great job breaking down what menopause is, some of the societal thoughts behind it, what the science is, what hormone therapy can do, what it can't do, who it works for and who it doesn't. So I would check that out. Another book that I loved and was actually afraid to read for a while after starting medically induced menopause was Estrogen Matters, by Dr. Abram Blooming, because I just thought, oh gosh, I can't, no estrogen, nothing like that. But reading that book really opened up my mind to what possibilities can be. And it speaks to the importance of having a relationship with your doctor and figuring out, like working as a team to figure out what works best for each individual patient. Very empowering. That's a great one. Some doctors who are on social media and very active, and also breast cancer survivors, are Dr. Corinne Min, Dr. Suzanne Gilbert-Lenz, Dr. Liz O'Riordan. There is a menopause and cancer podcast and platform that's based in the UK, and they are all about highlighting topics that women are dealing with from a survivorship standpoint, from a menopause standpoint, and bringing in doctors and experts to discuss those issues. So I highly recommend listening. And then getting involved with the community is super important. So we'll link all these, but the Breasties, I love them. BAYS, my local organization for the breast of us, are incredible organizations that really shine the light on survivorship. And then I guess the final piece is not everyone has to become an advocate, but there are amazing organizations who support the journey. American Cancer Society, the Tiger Lily Foundation, Know Your Lemons. So there are platforms that are all about education, how to mobilize politicians so that research and policy supports eradicating breast cancer. And so just getting involved in whichever space feels most comfortable to you, I think is where a survivor or a caregiver or family member can have the most impact.
Teyonna and I want to thank you so much for being here today with us for our first virtual summit, putting the pieces back together after cancer treatment. We hope that the information that we shared today will impact your life in a positive way. If you have any questions or comments on the information that was provided today, please feel free to contact us. We're so happy that you joined us for this conversation.
Thank you so much.